Welcome to day 13, entitled Approved. So everything we've talked about up to this point can actually be encapsulated by this one day, by a universal human desire for approval. So up to this point, none of the things we've discussed are inherently bad, right? Like being esteemed, loved, extolled, honored, praised, preferred, consulted. They're not inherently bad things. If you're living an upright, faithful life, then those things are actually going to come your way. You're going to be loved, extolled, honored, praised, preferred, consulted throughout your life. Their very existence isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. Sometimes they're a natural byproduct of a life well lived, and there's nothing wrong with that. Instead, the point of the litany of humility is to discourage you from striving after any one of them above all other things, and instead to encourage you to strive after one thing and one thing only, and that is a secure base relationship with Jesus. I heard a preacher once say that there's a throne on the heart of every person. Esteem, love, honor, praise, approval, they all, if left unchecked, they all are going to try and sit on that throne. They're going to try to rule your life. But if you're free from the desire to seek them, if they don't sit on the throne, then that seat is actually open for Jesus to sit there. At 3 p.m. every day, I have a reminder that pops up on my phone. And that reminder says, who do you live for? And every day at 3 p.m. when I see it, either in the quiet of my heart or out loud, I try and respond with, I live for the King. I live for him to sit on the throne of my heart as King and ruler of my life. I live, in the context of today, for his approval, to honor him, to prefer him, to worship him, to consult him, to love him. 3 o'clock every day, it's an aspirational moment for me. It's something I'm striving for. I don't want to live grasping for the approval of anybody other than Jesus. I don't want to live trying to please or adhering to the will of another flawed human being because, to be honest, I'm completely exhausted from having tried to live for the approval of another for the better part of my life. And I want, above all else, to live for the approval of Jesus. Now, sometimes does that get confusing, especially in the workplace? Absolutely. You want to seek the approval of your boss to a certain extent because that means that you are able to grow in your career. You want to seek the approval of your parents because it's natural to want your parents to be proud of you. And you want to seek the approval of your spouse because you want to be on the same page. You want to be in good relationship. And those things are all fine, provided they're subservient to the ultimate approval, which is the approval of God. That if what God wanted you to do was pitted against what your boss, your spouse, or your parents wanted you to do, you would seek God's approval over the approval of the other person. This is essentially about being free to say no to the things that are in opposition to God and yes to the things of God. So, if you're exhausted by trying to please someone who cannot be pleased, if you're at your wit's end trying to earn the approval of someone when you know it's never going to come your way, if you're struggling to find clarity in a world that's confusing, if you feel lost and alone, if you can't for the life of you seem to be able to say no to anything or anyone, especially when that thing isn't good for you, if you're resentful over a relationship that doesn't seem to value you in the way that it should, if you're frustrated by being overlooked or constantly invalidated, the litany of humility says the answer to all of those challenges is the exact same thing. So often in life, we seek a resolution to our problems or our crosses and get frustrated when God doesn't seem to give an answer or solve the problem. And the reason isn't that God goes silent, even though we think he sometimes goes silent. It's that on this side of heaven, God is in the business of building relationships, not resolutions. And the resolution to the problem is often a relationship. So the litany of humility has the same answer across the spectrum to all of our challenges. And that answer is Jesus. Prioritize Jesus. Prioritize a relationship with him. If that is number one, everything we've talked about up to this point will fall into proper order and proper place. The key to growth in the spiritual life isn't having a resolution to your problems or frustrations. It isn't to beat yourself up. It's a reprioritizing of relationship. It's making Jesus the most important person of your life. It's flipping everything on its head. It's Give Jesus the praise, give Jesus the esteem, the honor, the preference. Consult him, get his approval. Seek first the kingdom of God. Make sure he's sitting on the throne. Make sure he's the one you're seeking approval for above all other things. And judge the opinion and the advice of other people based on whether or not they're advocating for you to follow what God is calling you to do, and not by their own whims and desires. Because the peace you long for, the happiness you seek, will follow the more and more you seek the approval from God. So, from the desire to be approved, deliver me, Jesus.